let's talk about, well, I'd like to hear your view on the situation in Britain right now. I talked to Kemi Badenoch and I talked to Nigel Farage. You guys have a split on the Conservative side.
Yeah.
What do you make of that? And are you, well, let's talk about that more generally.
We had a general election last year. Sir Keir Starmer won with 20% of the electorate. He's not a popular prime minister, and he's only gone down in popularity. He won because the right was split, as you say, between Reform UK and Nigel Farage is, just sort of seen as a populist, and I think he would say I think he's even said it on my show, to some extent he's a populist. And Kemi Badenoch, who's got this impossible job where half the party have not learned the right lessons from the election. They think they lost because they went too far right, and then they gave seats away to the Dems. And then the other part of it seems obvious to me, they lost because they lost their votes to Reform, who was on the right of them. So she's got this very difficult task to take a whole organisation, which is itself split. It's not entirely clear to me that she has the authority even within it, because it's CCHQ. And she's got 4.5 years to take them to an election where every time she says anything in Parliament, Sir Keir Starmer can say, you had 14 years, why don't you do anything? Yeah. And likewise, she gets outflanked on her right. So it's kind of a very difficult situation. Reform UK have, I guess their problems are that they're storming up the polls, which is encouraging for them. Their problems is, can they get together enough people? Need to get 300 or 400 candidates for the next election.
Yeah, and qualified and useful candidates.
Exactly, which is extremely difficult. I mean, actually, technically, the Conservatives have the same problem, because I would say there's very little talent in their ranks in Parliament at the moment. So it's not entirely clear to me what will happen. And so anyone who has any predictions, it's 4 years away, the next election. So much happening in 4 weeks. So calling what might happen is impossible. Some people say there might have to be some sort of deal. Maybe that's the case. Can she make it to the election?
Well, there'll be some kind of deal, because at least the Conservatives at the moment have the advantage of being able to fight. Like the fact, you see, this happened in Canada, right? Because Reform UK was named after the Reform Party in Canada. And what happened 30 years ago, something like that, the right split in Canada. There were a variety of reasons for that. Part of it was that the Conservatives were no longer arguably sufficiently libertarian or socially conservative. And so there was a fracture in the ranks. And Preston Manning pulled the Conservatives back to the Conservative side. Yeah. That took a number of years, and then the Conservatives reunited. But it was a salutary operation, all things considered. And I think now in Canada, we have at least some leaders on the Conservative side who have some spine. And that was a consequence of this war. Now, you could imagine that because Badenoch faces Farage as ferocious opposition and vice versa, they could use that opportunity to really hash things out. So Farage is a little more daring at the moment on the net zero side than Badenoch. He hasn't come out and said that the whole bloody climate apocalypse narrative is a dehumanizing and parasitical scam, which it is, but he's at least making overtures in that direction. Now, Badenoch, when I interviewed her, she pointed out that she was leery about the rampage towards net zero, especially on the economic side, right from the beginning, and more power to her. But the thing is, they can play off each other and see how far they can push the argument and what that does in terms of their popularity. There's an opportunity there, and that would be true with regard to all Conservative policies. Like maybe within the Conservative Party, first principle arguments couldn't be undertaken, but now they have to be. So, and they're both smart, I think. I was very impressed with Badenoch. I mean, she's an engineer, so she thinks like an engineer, which is really systematically and thoroughly. And she's also a lawyer, though she hadn't practiced as a lawyer, was at least trained in law school. So
is she smart enough, though? So, for example, Kamala Harris, some people have ridiculed her as being dumb. And if you listen to
Yeah.
what she said through the election, you'd be like, maybe she's an idiot.
Yeah.
But it might be that she wasn't actually that dumb. It was that she wasn't bright enough, in that she had so many different factions and trying to keep this whole operation going that she was censoring herself from losing the wrong people, whether it was the woke side of her party or the more sort of conservative side of her party. She couldn't quite have the dialogue to pull it all together. If Biden plays this game that you're describing, she risks losing people. She could lose the right wing of her party. They could just go over to Reform. The left wing could go over to Lib Dems. It can kind of fall apart. It's almost like, is that the realm for that conversation? Farage has a huge advantage. There's only 5 MPs that he's got.
Right,
so he
right. Well, I think so the Democrats in the U.S., there's a reason Harris didn't go on any podcasts, a couple of reasons. The first is that the Democrats are so clueless when it comes to the alternative media that they might as well be living in 1970. We invited, by we, I mean a group of major podcasters in the U.S. We've invited Democrats to speak with us. We've offered formal invitations repeatedly for 8 years. And we mediated those invitations through one of the Democrats' central political messengers. And they got the invite. And we couldn't find one who would do it. Not one. Now, Dean Phillips talked to me after he got slaughtered in his presidential campaign because he got betrayed so badly by his Democrat peers. And I've talked to RFK and Gabbard, who are, heretical Democrats. But the thing about the Democrats that is very much worth understanding is all the people who have a voice left or got killed.
Well, but they're anti-pluralist, which, by the way, is they accuse the populists of being anti-pluralist. But if you look at Trump's coalition, it's a pluralist
coalition. It certainly is, yes.
And Obama now, anti-pluralism, they can't say anti-populist anymore because that doesn't work. So they're anti-pluralist. But it was the Democrats. I heard your interview of Dean Phillips. And what he's describing is a totalitarian party. So
absolutely. Well, and it's worse than that. It's worse. Or maybe this is a reflection of that totalitarian proclivity. The reason Harris didn't go on podcasts, apart from the fact that the Democrats are completely clueless about the alternative media, and like I said, live in 1970, is that a Democrat won't say anything that hasn't been workshopped.
Right.
And the reason for that is they don't want to offend anyone. Well, if you're not going to offend anyone, you're going to say the most anodyne things, which of course Harris always sounds like she's talking to retarded kindergarten children. Yeah. It's so demeaning. Yeah. And you might say, well, that's the level at which she's capable of conducting discourse, and that might be true, but there is this additional element of the absolute inability of the Democrats to say anything that would offend their most sensitive, progressive junior staffer.
And that's not happening just in the Democrat Party. That's been happening in the progressive movement.
Yes,
basically
definitely.
All American liberals have this censoring, which again fits into my idea that hurty words, they think hurty words end up in genocide. And I would say that the opposition to that, what's happened in return, is Trump doesn't give a damn. He says whatever he wants.
Yes.
And all of that. And you have just a kind of response to the virtue signaling left is the vice signaling right, where, what's the most popular comedy show in the world? It's Kill Tony now.
Right,
where they find the meekest, these literally disabled people, and they will humiliate them on stage. And everyone's is kind of equal opportunities humiliation, but it's very much a total antithesis of that's happened at the cultural level.
Yeah.